वै
तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु
मा विद्विषावै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। May the Supreme Being protect us both, the teacher and the taught. May the Supreme Being nourish us both, the teacher and the taught. May we acquire equal energy. May our acquired knowledge be effulgent. May we not hate each other. Peace, peace, peace. So I have been asked today to speak on Kriya Yoga. So most probably you have read some of the aspects of Samadhi Pada. Samadhi Pada is the crux or the primary essence of Yoga Sutra. It tells us about different stages of different stages of our consciousness. And it teaches us as to how we can raise our consciousness from the conscious level to the superconscious. And that is our goal. How are we going to be benefited by doing this? Why should we pay so much of attention, or why should we be so much concentrated on raising our level of concentration? Only one reason is there. The reason is to get rid of the sufferings from our life. There are infinite number of sufferings in our life, and our life is seriously plagued with sufferings. And how do we get rid of these sufferings? By being back to our own real nature. Tada drashtu swarupe avastha. Then the seer or the self abide in its own real nature. So there are binary states, two states. One, either you have the option to be in your own real nature, or you have to be identified with the external objects of. And once you get identified with the external objects of the world, the suffering starts. So no identification, non-identification with the external world. You will definitely be a seer. You will definitely be a witness of all the changeable things which are happening in this world. But you did not get identified. The technique is taught in the yoga or in the science of yoga as to how we can delink ourselves from the external world and be existent in our own real nature or abide by our own real nature. What is our own real nature? We are Nitya Shuddha Buddha Mukta. We are Satchidananda Swarupaha. We are of the nature of Satchidananda. Manobuddhi ahamkara chittani naham na cha sotra juve na cha grana netre na cha vyoma bhumi na tejo na vayu Chidananda rupaha shivoham shivo. And whenever you say Shivoham, and the next moment you experience an acute toothache, what will happen to you? you will be reduced to the body again. You will say, yes, everything in this world is an illusion. The body is an illusion, the teeth are illusion, but the toothache is real because it impinges so much on us. So we have to get rid of that. And to get rid of those adversities and the relativities of the world, we have to delink ourselves from the external world. We have to dissociate ourselves from getting identified with an external object. How can we do that? And what are the ways by which we can control our mind? Our mind is an object which is very difficult to be controlled. And if you don't control your mind, then it will help, or rather it will lead you to get yourself identified with the external worldly objects. We have to get ourselves dissociated from the external objects. And how can we do that? We can do that by the methods of concentration. Vyasa, in his commentary of Yoga Sutra, says Yoga Samadhi. What is yoga? Yoga is samadhi. And what is samadhi? Samadhi is concentration, and concentration only and nothing else. Don't be obsessed with this idea that it is samadhi, some sort of supernatural experience which you will experience in a way in the solitude and in a very elevated state of your being. Any moment, any time, anywhere you can develop samadhi or you can experience samadhi. And samadhi means concentrating your mind, concentrating your chitta vrittis or your thought waves on a single object. But ultimate goal is to dissolve the thought waves. Yoga chitta vritti nirodha. So long there are chitta vrittis, we will not be able to abide in our own real nature. It will always force us. It will always tend to send out our senses towards the external objects. Paranchi khani vatranat swayambhu tasmat parang pashyati nantaratma. Kashid dhira prattagatmana maishat abrita chakshuhu amritatvam icchan. Kathopanishad. Kathopanishad says that Paranchi Khani, Khani means our senses. They are Paranchi. Paranchi Khani, our senses are externally directed. Paranchi Khani, being externally directed or making our senses externally directed. Bhatranat Swayambhu. Who is Swayambhu? Swayambhu is the self-creator or the creator of this world. Who has created you or who has created myself, ourselves. So that creator has tortured on us by directing our senses outwardly. Paranjikhani Bhatranat Swayambhu. Tasmat Parang Pashyati. When they are externally directed, they will definitely derive the elements of knowledge from the external world. Kashid dhira. A few dhira. Dhira means a person having dhi. Dhi means buddhi. And buddhi is the determinative faculty. You have to have buddhi. Without buddhi, nothing is going to happen. You will have no yoga at all if you don't have buddhi. No buddhi, no yoga. So Kashit Dhira for only a few intellectual people. And this intellectualism should not be reduced to intellectual gymnastics. The intellect should be applied to discriminate between the good and the bad, to discriminate between the real and the unreal. So that Kashit Dhira, if you have that power of discrimination, then only you are qualified. Then only you are eligible. Now, if somebody says that, look, I don't have knowledge at all, I don't have intellect at all, but I am a great devotee of God. Can't I have the experience of yoga? Will I not have the scope of experiencing the supreme state of realization? If you are an earnest devotee, then you are exempted of all the practices, not required. The Lord in Srimad Bhagavad Gita says, Tesham eva anukampartham ahamadhyanajam tama nashayami atmabhavastho jnanadipena bhasvata. Many people are there who do not have intellect, but they are my earnest follower, not the Facebook follower, real follower. They are the earnest follower of mine. For the earnest follower of mine, for the earnest devotee of mine, for the earnest lover of myself, what I do, I enter into the core of their hearts and enkindle the lamp of knowledge, flame of knowledge, or lamp of knowledge, by which darkness is dispelled, darkness of ignorance is dispelled. So if you are an earnest devotee, you need not think about Yoga Shastra and practices of yoga and others. You are already a yogi. If you become my follower, then you are exempted of all the practices. And if you are not my follower, then you have to appear for the test. Then you have to aspire to have the experiences of yoga. The Lord has been little partial to his devotees. When the question of devotees comes, he becomes partial. He becomes biased. Let Lord be biased, but we should not be biased. Because becoming a devotee is very, very difficult task. It is the highest pinnacle of the experiences. Devotee can do anything for the Lord. Anything for the Lord. Yogi cannot do. Now, Kashit Dhira Prattakatmanam Aikshat. A few men with discriminative faculty, determinative faculty, Prattakatmanam Aikshat, in order to know the inner self. Abrita Chakshu, turn their eyes or the senses inward. Why? Amritattvam Icchan, in order to attain immortality. Immortality is our goal. Immortality is our highest goal. Jatha sangharate chayam kurmangani va sarvasha indriyani indriyarthebhya tasya prajna pratisthita. Whose prajna, whose knowledge will be established? His knowledge will be established. Whose knowledge? Jatha Sangharate Chayam Kurumangani Sarvasha. Whenever one can withdraw its senses, like the limbs a tortoise withdraws within itself. Similarly, if one can withdraw all his senses inside and concentrate on the inner self, then only he will be established in knowledge. Now, what are the practical techniques by which it can be done? And what is the supreme way to the self-realization? The Lord has been very explicit. Ye yatha mam prapadyante tam tathaiva bhajamyam mama vartmanu vartante manushya partha sarvasha. Whosoever comes to me from whatsoever form, I reach him. All men are struggling through paths which in the end lead to me. So all methods, all the ways, all the aspirations, all the techniques are valid and potent, provided we are sincere. But Patanjali in his Yoga Sutra has clearly stated or talked about two methods of self-realization. Of course, he has given approval to all methods. Whatever method is adopted by an aspirant, all have been given proper approval. But he recommends two methods. One is that of Kriya Yoga and the other is that of Ashtanga. The man who is not very expert in dealing with his mind and concentration, he should practice Kriya Yoga. He is definitely not a very, very superior aspirant. But see, he is an ordinary aspirant as highlighted by Vyasa the commentator. Kriya Yoga is not for the most superior aspirant. The best of the aspirants, they have the power to control their mind. But for the ordinary people like ourselves, we can practice Kriya Yoga and Ashtanga. Kriya Yoga and Ashtanga Yoga. So what do we mean by Kriya Yoga? What do we mean by Kriya Yoga? Patanjali has given definitions of Kriya Yoga. But by Kriya Yoga we mean that it has come out of the word Kriya. And Kriya means work. So it could have been written Karma Yoga. Patanjali has very carefully avoided the word Karma Yoga. Apparently, it may sound synonymous. That whatever is Karma Yoga, that is only Kriya Yoga. Kriya means karma. Karma means work. It has come from Kri Dhatu, and Kri means do, Kring, Karane. That means which represents doing of work. So Kriya means work to be done. Karma means work to be done. But Patanjali the Lord has been very, very explicit on Karma Yoga in Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Not only explicit, he has showered profuse praise on Karma Yoga. And he said that Karma Yoga Vishishyate. Karma Yoga is the highest amongst all the yoga. Without Karma Yoga, you cannot start the practice. So Karma Yoga is compulsory. Everyone has to perform Karma Yoga. But Patanjali has very carefully avoided the term Karma Yoga, used the same connotation in the term of Kriya. Kriya means also karma. But Kriya means some properly recommended karma. Karma Yoga, you don't have any recommendations. You have to apply the power of discrimination to understand that which work you should perform and which work you should not. कर्मण्येवाधिकारस्ते मा फलेषु कदाचन मा कर्म फल हेतुर्भूमाते संगस्तु कर्म. So this is karma yoga. But Kriya Yoga recommends certain recommended techniques, a set of recommended techniques, which may be considered as a subset of Karma Yoga. Subset is a mathematical term. That means it is included within Karma Yoga, but it is very specific and particular karma. Specific and particular karma. And he has clearly mentioned Tapah, Swadhya, Ishwara Pranidhanani Kriya Yoga. Tapah, Swadhya, Ishwara Pranidhanani Kriya Yoga. So Kriya Yoga is something which constitutes Tapa, Swadhya, Swadhya and Ishwara Pranidhana as the constituent units. And they should be simultaneously practiced, coevally practiced. It is not that you start practicing the first one and then stop practicing the first and go to the second. No. To express it in human language, in the form of human speech, you have to follow certain serial. Therefore, it is said that Tapas Swadhya Ishwara. But these Tapas Swadhya Ishwara Pranidhana should be practiced simultaneously. What will happen if you practice Kriya Yoga? What will happen to you? Kayendriya Siddhi Ashuddhi Shayat Tapasa. Kayendriya Siddhi Ashuddhi Shayat Tapasa. If you practice this tapa, what is tapa? We do not know. I have not told you what is tapa. We have some misconception about tapa, wrong ideas about tapa. I will tell you what will this tapa do. Kriya Yoga will lead you to the supreme goal. It will give you the supreme enlightenment. And what is supreme enlightenment? It is very simple. To be in your own real nature. To be in your Swarupa. So Tapat Swadhya. If you practice Tapa, what will happen? Kayendriya Siddhi Ashuddhi Shayat Tapasa. If you practice Tapa, then you will have fullest control over your Kaya, means body, and your senses. You don't have the control over your senses? Okay. Practice Tapa, you will have the control over your senses and control over your body. But what does this Tapa mean? It has come from tap dhatu. Tap dahe. Panini records tap dahe. Dahe means burning, burn out. Tapa is that which burns ignorance. All the ignorance within you will be burnt in no time if you practice tapas. On the other hand, Acharya Shankara comments, Manaso hi indriyanam hi aikagram paramam tapa. Manaso indriyanam hi aikagram paramam tapa. That is the highest tapa. That is the highest tapa, which is done by Manaso indriyanami aikagram. That means by the concentration of your mind and sense. So by tapa, we have to develop our concentration. By any means, by any practice. Any practice by which we develop concentration is called tapas. So there is no hard and fast rule that tapas should be this, tapas should be that. Some people say pranayaman, paramam tapa. That is your idea. That is your take. We have no objection in considering pranayama to be the highest tapa. But some people are there who do not consider pranayama to be the highest tapa. They consider the singing the glory of the Lord, some people, glory of the Lord to be the highest form of concentration. Ultimately, your mind and senses must be focused. That is the goal. Tapa helps focus your mind and your senses. Manaso indriyanami aikagram. And thus what it does, it burns out ignorance. All the entire ignorance within us will be burned in no time if you practice tapas. It may be, pranayama may be also be considered as a form of tapas. Or repetition of Gayatri may also be considered as a form of tapas. Even if you are listening to the lecture attentively, that may also be tapas. What will happen? You will get a perfect control over your body and you will get a perfect control over your senses. When the body and senses are in control, then automatically the mind will also be under control. Because the mind reaches out to the external objects through the senses. Indriya pranali kaya. Through the channel of the senses, they go out. Now the senses are made come. Jatha pancha vadishtante jnanani manasasa. Jatha pancha vadishtante jnanani manasasa. That means where the five senses are arrested with the mind. With the mind. That is the highest experience. Highest experience of yoga. You will be in for a highest experience. You will about to experience the highest state of realization. So, anyhow, you have to develop the power of concentration. This is tapas. And if you develop the power of concentration, the ignorance, the age-long ignorance which is accumulated within yourself will be destroyed. And when the ignorance is destroyed, you will be in your own real nature. Why we are not in our own real nature? Because we are identified with the external object owing to ignorance. Owing to ignorance. A man was coming, nowadays there are the morning walkers club, laughing club, morning walkers club. Morning walk has become a fashion nowadays. So people form groups to go for morning walk. So one day one of the morning walker was missing. Missing means he was not turning up. For 5 days, 6 days he was absent. When he came back, all his associates starts inquiring as to whether he was well or not. Oh, what happened? You did not come. Oh, I was not well. Even I was in a terrible crisis. What sort of crisis? This health hazards and all. Health hazards. Are you well? Your BP is normal. Your blood sugar level is normal. No, everything of mine is normal. But my wife fell down and broke her legs. Oh, so you are no, I am not exactly. I am not unwell, but I am in a terrible crisis. This example is not put forward by me. This is not my example. This example has been put forward by Acharya Shankara in his Adhyasa Bhashya. That whenever your putra and your bharya, your wife and your son, your children, they are ill, you consider yourselves to be ill and sick. This is the false identification. We have to get rid of the false identification. Because ultimately there is no one in this world who will accompany you after the death. A king had 4 wives. And the king grew old. The king sometimes realized that he is about to die within a few days. So he called his youngest wife. The youngest of the wives is always very dear. So youngest wife and said, look, I am going to die within a few days. So you are my beloved wife. I want you to accompany me to the other world. Will you accompany me? He said, accompanying you? How can I accompany you? I have a small child and I have to bring him up. I cannot accompany you to the this other world. However, I ensure that I will go with you till the crematorium. Then he called the 3rd wife and said, will you accompany me? She said, no, accompanying you is not possible. I cannot go. So what I can do is that I can look after your relatives and your children after your death. That I can ensure. And the 3rd wife also said, I cannot go. Now but he did not dare to ask this to the 1st wife, because he has neglected his 1st wife forever. Throughout his life, he has neglected his 1st wife. Now suddenly he heard a voice coming from a distance. He saw his 1st wife. He said, wherever you go, I will accompany you with you. I will accompany you wherever you go. Now you see the third wife, the fourth wife, youngest wife. The youngest wife is our body. We love the body very much. And we are always associated with the body. We cannot think ourselves without the body. But this body will not go. The body will not go after the death to the other world. The third wife represents the properties and wealth which we have and which we leave for our successors. So after the death, that property will be divided among the successors. And they will be perfectly they will be having the well-being. The second wife are the relatives and friends. He said, I will go to the crematorium, up to crematorium. So the relatives and friends, they are the third wife. The third wife will accompany you to the crematorium. The first wife is your karma. The karma will accompany you to the other world. Therefore, we have to perform karma. And that is why karma yoga is Vishishya. Karma yoga Vishishyate. Karma yoga is the supreme one. Now, Kriya yoga starts with concentration of mind and your senses. Now, only this much will not suffice. Simultaneously, you have to practice the cultivation of knowledge. Swadhya, self-study. Self-study of what? Self-study of the intellectual elements. That means you have to study the Shastras, the Vedas, the Vedanta, and all the other Shastra, Moksha Shastra. Vyasa interprets that you have to study the Moksha Shastra. As Srimad Bhagavad Gita, all these Moksha Shastra. Swadhyaya means self-study. Swadhyaya means self-study. So you have to practice on your own. No one will be guiding you here. And you will not be getting any sort of external guidance or external information. Now your mind and senses are focused. Once your mind and senses are focused, what will you do with your mind and senses? You will utilize that the concentration of your mind and senses to study Moksha Shastra, to study or to undertake practices which will lead to moksha. Several practices are there. The practices Swadhyaya does not mean Vyasa has written. Vyasa has written that it is the study of Moksha Shastra. But Patanjali has not written it is the study of Moksha Shastra. Patanjali has left it open to the aspirants. If you consider that your pranayama or your yoga or your meditation, the pranayama or meditation, they are the things by which you can elevate yourself to the higher domain of experiences, then you can practice that also. But for practicing anything, for performing any act, you have to sharpen your tool. And sharpening your tool is your tapah. You have to develop concentration first. Then you practice. Then you practice. If you are concentrated, then only you can practice it efficiently and properly. Otherwise, you cannot practice efficiently. One person was engaged to cut trees. And he used to cut trees for years, 10 years, 14 years, or 15 years. 30 trees per day. Now a new person has been appointed with him. So every day he started cutting, that new person started cutting 70 trees per day. And he used to cut only 30 trees per day. So the second person within a year, he got promotion. Now that person was disheartened and he said, I will quit the job because he has come only for 1 year and I have been working here for 18 years and 19 years, but I have not been promoted. This person is promoted. So he went to submit his resignation. The authority said that, why are you leaving? So this is the reason. Go and you also cut it. You also cut 70 trees, but this will give you promotions. But how do I cut? I am unable to cut. Go and ask you that person. So he went and asked that person that why are you, how can you, by what means you cut so many trees at a time? He says that, look, you go on cutting trees incessantly. But at every interval, I stop and sharpen my tools. If you sharpen your tools, then only it is possible for you to give a nice output, a pronounced output. Otherwise, it's not possible. So the first step is this. First step, you have to focus. You have to make your tool sharp, and then you apply that to any act you want to perform. But ultimately, you must be aware of a higher experience. And what is that higher experience? Ishwara Pranidhana. Ishwara Pranidhana. Ishwara Pranidhana means surrendering to God. Surrendering to God. According to Patanjali, God is just an object of meditation. It is having all sorts of excellent qualities. All sorts of excellent qualities. And you have to surrender to God. But there are many non-believers. And those non-believers will not be liking to surrender to God. Now, Ishwara, the word Ishwara has come from the verbal root ish. Ish. And Panini records Isha Ishwariye. So you should not necessarily translate the word Ishwara as God, but you can also translate the word as the source of infinite prosperity. Ishwara is infinite prosperity, infinite wealth. He is klesha karma vibhaga ashahi aparamrishta purusha vishesha Ishwara. Who is Ishwara? Klesha karma vibhaga ashahi aparamrishta purusha vishesha Ishwara. Ishwara is that supreme consciousness, highest level of consciousness in this relative world, of course, which is unaffected by klesha, sufferings, karma, work, vipaka, the fruition of work, and ashahi means the locus of the support. We are all affected by klesha, karma, vipaka, and ashaya. But the Lord is not affected by that. You have to surrender to Lord there. If you surrender to Lord, your journey to the higher world will be swift. A concept of course, again now where devotion excels is that devotion is another form of love. Basically, devotion is a form of love. And love is always so intense that it will at once concentrate our mind and senses. It has the power to at once capture our mind and senses. A person fallen in love throughout, throughout the day and night. One thought is disturbing him. I am disturbed by elevated. It may be an elevated experience. Love is an elevated experience, of course. But every time you are engrossed by that, it makes you always aware of that person or the person or the object of love. So that is why devotion is also a form of yoga. Here it is said that first you prepare yourself for yoga, then you practice yoga, and ultimately surrender to the Supreme Self. Tapah, Swadhya, Ishwara, Pranidhana. You worship the Supreme. These all are the different facets of concentration. Sharpening your tool is also some form of concentration. The Swadhyaya is also a form of concentration. And that is also Ishwara Pranidhana is the one of the highest form of concentration. Jat karoshi jadashnashi jad juhasi dadasi yat tapassasi kaunteya tad kurushva madarpanam. Jat karoshi, whatever you work, jadashnashi, whatever you eat, jat karoshi jadashnashi jad juhasi, whatever you offer, dadasi jat, whatever you give in form of charity, jat tapassasi kaunteya tad kurushva madarpanam. Surrender everything to me. This will lead you, this will give you freedom from all sorts of sins, all sorts of bondages. You know, in Srimad Bhagavad Gita, there are 18 chapters. And in all these 18 chapters, have nomenclature with a tag yoga. Arjuna Vishada Yoga, Sankhya Yoga, Karma Yoga, Karma Sannyasa Yoga, Vibhuti Yoga. So all are yoga. And the last chapter is, Moksha Yoga. Highest attainment, yoga of highest. So all through the 17 chapters, he has taught the different practices of yoga to Arjuna. And in the last chapter, he says, Arjuna, why do you take so much of trouble? Practicing yoga is always painful. You have to be very much patient. You have to apply your body. You have to apply your mind. You have to take stresses. Do something which is more enjoying. You want, what do you want? You want moksha, you want the liberation, you want the freedom. So you go to the person who has that, you want something. You go to that person, ask from that person who has it. Sarva dharman paritvajya mamekam sharanam braja aham tva sarva papebhyo mokshayiswami masucha. Oh Arjuna, don't grieve. Sarva dharman paritvajya. Give up all sorts of practices. Mamekam sharanam braja. Surrender everything to me. Aham tva sarva papebhyo mokshayiswami masucha. I will deliver you from all the sins. And I will gift you the supreme freedom, supreme moksha. Masucha, don't grieve, Arjuna. You have come to the right place. Ultimately, you have to become my follower. You have to give likes to me. If you are not my follower, then this, you have to go and practice all those things. Otherwise, the path is very simple. But to surrender everything to the Lord, you must prepare yourself. You cannot go and surrender everything to the Lord. You cannot surrender. You cannot surrender. I will just take 1 minute more and I will conclude with an anecdote where, there is in India, there is a Narada Muni. Narada Muni is a devotee of Lord Vishnu and he has a lyre in his hand. He plays the lyre every time. Every time he sings the name of the Lord. One day the Lord asked him, Narada, can you tell me who is my greatest devotee? Narada says, who but myself can be your greatest devotee? I am your greatest devotee. Every time I sing your glory. Okay, all right. Then next day when Narada came, he saw that this Vishnu was severely sick. What happened? What happened to you? What happened to you? I am very sick. You just call in a doctor. So the doctor came. Doctor said that the disease is serious. There is only one antibiotic which will act. So he recommended one antibiotic on the, please take this antibiotic on the prescription. The antibiotic was written that the dust of the feet of a devotee to be smeared on the forehead of Narayana. He will be only cured if the dust of the feet of the Lord can be smeared on the forehead of Narayana. So Narayana became very happy. He said, Narada, you are my greatest devotee. You give me some dust from your feet. I will smear on my head and I will come round the ailment. I will come round the disease. I will recover from the disease. He said, no, I can give my life to you, but I cannot give my dust of the feet to you. Because once the dust of my feet is smeared on your forehead, I will be experiencing infinite hell. Infinite sufferings. Then there is no one will give you. No one will be ready to give you. He said, Narada, you go to Vrindavan. You go to Vrindavan and you see what happens. So Narada went there with his chariot. Once he landed there in the airport of Vrindavan, all the milkmaids, they came rushing to him, said, how is my Krishna? How is my Krishna? How is my Krishna? Well, he is very ill, he is very sick, and but then how can he be cured? Haven't you consulted a doctor? Yes, we have consulted a doctor, but the doctor said that the dust of the feet of a devotee is to be smeared on the forehead of Lord Vishnu. He said all the milkmaids started saying together that, am I a devotee of Krishna? Am I a real devotee of Krishna? But if you are a real devotee, what will you give? Immediately I will give you some dust from our feet for the Lord, so that Lord is recovered. Do you know what will be the consequence? Yes, we know. It will be an infinite suffering. It will be infinite hell. May we suffer indefinite and infinite hell. But let the Lord be happy. This is the highest state of bhakti, highest state of love. This is Ishwara Pranidhana. You have to surrender everything to the Lord. But for surrendering everything to the Lord, you have to prepare yourself. And how do you prepare yourself? You have to prepare yourself through Tapah and Ishwara. You have to practice Tapah, concentration of your mind and senses, and practice of something related to Ishwara. And then you can go for Ishwara Pranidhana. Ishwara sarva bhutanam hriddesha arjuna tishtati brahmayan sarva bhutani yantra rudhani maya Tameva saranangacha sarvabhavena bharata. Ishwara is residing in every object of this universe. He is stationed within every being and runs it as a machine man runs a machine. Therefore, you take refuge in that Ishwara. And if you have this, can take refuge, surrender to Ishwara, then you will get the supreme experience of self-realization, or you will be established in your Swarupa, Tadadrashtu Swarupe Avastha. So thank you for a patient hearing.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. I am listening to you after so many years. After you left Kevaledam, that is means after the COVID. At COVID,
After the
we had online sessions, and
yes, yes,
it really makes me feel very happy.
yes.
It's, the way you put it and the way you explain the subject, simplifying it. If I go and read it, it's going to be very complicated for me. But you're going to simplify it so well. Really, very good. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So I take leave of you. Any question? Any question, query?
Any questions? Anybody? Please go ahead.
So, if possible, can you explain this false identification and responsibility? So,
What's
when you were talking, I'm sorry, that's the nature. I try to correlate. Yes, if my daughter is unwell, I feel everything is gone for a task, and my practices stop. Full concentration is only on her. So, can you explain about this a
that
little
is,
more?
it will take another lecture to explain this. So I will explain it at some later point of time. I think I will be taking.
Okay.
Yes.
So in that lecture, I will be addressing this issue.
Sure, sir. Thank you.
Any
So
other
thank you.
questions? Any questions? Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
If you don't have questions, what does it imply? It implies that everything has been properly expressed and everything has been properly absorbed, imbibed, or nothing has been properly delivered and nothing has been imbibed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.